What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind, and today I will be reviewing Spider-Man Homecoming. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Spider-Man Homecoming gives us the third incarnation of the Spider-Man character in 15 years. Now that's a very short space of time to have 3 actors portray the role. After the failure of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Sony Entertainment decided to join forces with Marvel Studios with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in full swing to introduce Spider-Man. Now, this is what Marvel fans and Spider-Man fans such as myself wanted to see for a long time. We wanted to see Spider-Man interact with other Marvel superheroes like Iron Man and Captain America. And we got that in Captain America Civil War. And Tom Holland, I felt in that film, was really good, and it really got you built up, ready for his first solo movie, which came out a year later in 2017. Spider-Man Homecoming is kind of a strange film. It's a film which I personally think renewed the Spider-Man franchise, and I'm quite looking forward to reviewing it right now. So in terms of character development, I quite like where they go with the majority of characters in this film. Spider-Man's story arc in this film is fresh because you don't see Uncle Ben getting murdered, which is quite a refreshing thing, because for the first Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man, you saw Uncle Ben getting murdered, you saw him being bit by the spider, like you basically saw the origin story. I'm really happy that Spider-Man Homecoming decided not to go through the origin story route. Instead, we see him learning how to become a superhero, because Tom Holland is the youngest actor to portray the character, so Spider-Man is a freshman high school student. And they really did do well with that. It's good to see him learning his techniques and seeing what it's like to become a superhero, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. As for the other characters' development, I really like what they do with the Vulture in this movie. I think that his story arc is brilliant and very relatable. He's one of the more relatable villains in the MCU. So for people saying that the MCU has a villain problem, I think Vulture's kind of solved that, because he's quite a good villain, and I think Michael Keaton gives a really good performance. As for the other characters, I do like the other characters. They're fun and enjoyable. They don't really have story arcs. However, they are fun and enjoyable, and they're good characters. So I like the story arc they did with this movie, and I really enjoyed the character development they did with Spider-Man in this movie. And that is why character development is going to get a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed the character development with these characters. I just think that some other characters could have got a bit more. In terms of performances, I think that the majority of actors in this movie give really good performances. The 2 standout performances would have to be Tom Holland and Michael Keaton. Now, Tom Holland, as you can tell, he's kind of a bit inexperienced. You can tell he's a bit nervous about taking on the part. However, it really does work, because Peter Parker is a very geeky character, a very nervous character, and he portrays the character really well. You can really tell that Spider-Man and Peter Parker are learning in this movie. It's all about learning. It's a learning movie. And he really is really good in this movie. I really like Tom Holland's performance. The other person would have to be Michael Keaton. Now, Michael Keaton brings a relatability, likability, and a slight menace to the portrayal of the Vulture. And probably one of the best scenes with Michael Keaton in is when he doesn't even have his Vulture costume on. He's just in a car talking with Peter Parker. And it's just brilliant, because Michael Keaton can just portray that menace very well, and you can really feel that there is tension between both actors there. So I think they're standout performances. They have really good chemistry. As for all the other actors and actresses involved, I do think they're really good. I like Zendaya's character. I do think that Zendaya's character could be improved in the sequel. I think that's what they're going to focus on in the sequel anyway. I like Zendaya because she's a talented actress. And of course, Robert Downey Jr. is brilliant as Iron Man. I like the idea of Iron Man training the next generation of Avengers. It's a good thing for continuity. It's like the new are taking over from the old. I just think that's perfect. And that is why performances is going to get a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed the performances in the movie, and I think they're all talented actors and actresses, and they give their best. Now, in terms of effects, this movie, I can't really fault the effects. The effects are actually really good. One of the things I enjoyed about Captain America Civil War with what they did with Spider-Man is that all of Spider-Man's eyes now move. I think they kind of got that from Deadpool a bit, because Deadpool was kind of the first movie released to have all the eyes move on the superhero. And they really do that well with Spider-Man, because in especially the animated series, Spider-Man's eyes show his expressions, especially when he's in costume, because he can't really speak or move his mouth. So his eyes really do show his expression, and they think they got that on the nose here. With the eyes moving as they did, Spider-Man Homecoming really did improve on the effects. The effects for the web swinging and slinging are the best yet. Now, you can say that the old Spider-Man movies, the effects are kind of starting to fade away. I think Spider-Man Homecoming's effects are more up to date because it is a more modern movie, and Marvel did put a lot of money and they invested a lot into this movie. So the effects, I can't really fault the effects, and that's why the effects are going to get a 9 out of 10. I just can't fault the effects. They're really good effects. In terms of the story and writing, yeah, the story in this I think is really good for the main part because there is a great twist. Now, I'm not going to give that twist away. However, it is a really good twist. I didn't see it coming. I usually see plot twists coming. I didn't see this one coming whatsoever. And as for Spider-Man figuring out exactly how much power he is, I like the idea that they gave him a very overpowered suit, you know, through the duration of this movie. Because when he got it taken away, and it was a great line where he said, "I'm nothing without this suit," and Iron Man said, "If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it." That's brilliant because it taught Spider-Man and Peter Parker that he needed to use his own initiative. He needed to prove that he was a hero without all the gadgets, without all the material, that he was a proper hero. And I think they really did it. It's a great story. It is not an origin story because Peter Parker is already Spider-Man. However, it is about Spider-Man learning to become a hero. And I think they've done that really well. I can't really fault the storyline for this movie because it's a really good storyline and I was invested in it. And just for that plot twist alone, the writing and story gets a 9 out of 10. Plus also there's a lot of comedy in it, like every Marvel film. So you know what? The comedy works 90% of the time. Now, special recognition is when I give something which is personal that I enjoyed about this movie. And for this movie, it would have to be Back to Basics. Now, this is mostly because The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was far too complex. And with this movie, they stripped Spider-Man down to just the basics. It was just Spider-Man learning how to be a hero and fighting off against one villain. Not 3, just one villain, which had a lot of character development himself. Now, this is something which has not been seen since Spider-Man 2. I know Spider-Man 3 had Sandman, who was a good villain. However, Spider-Man 2 was the last movie which stripped Spider-Man down this much. It just had Spider-Man going through trauma and a good villain in Dr. Octopus. And Spider-Man Homecoming does that with Spider-Man learning how to use his powers and learning to see what actually makes a hero, and Vulture. I love this movie. It is the best Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2, and it renewed my interest in Spider-Man. After The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was a bit kind of, oh, what's the point? They just keep bringing out Spider-Man movies which are no good. However, Spider-Man Homecoming, I really, really enjoyed this movie. And that's why, just because it went back to basics, the special recognition gets a 10 out of 10. This movie just was simplistic, it was far less complex, and I really enjoyed it as a result. So in conclusion, Spider-Man Homecoming gave a fresh take on the character, and it was really nice to see the franchise go back to a back-to-basics approach. I really enjoyed that Spider-Man Homecoming is set in the MCU, and the references to the continuity as well as nostalgic references to the comics and original animated series are really well received. And that is why Spider-Man Homecoming gets a 44 out of 50, which gives it a grade 2 ranking. I really enjoyed this Spider-Man movie and I can't wait for the sequel. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope that you enjoyed my Spider-Man Homecoming movie review. If you please could like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future. If you didn't know, this review was the first review I used the new grading system, so it might have been a bit kind of, I'm still getting used to the new grading system. However, I think the grading system's a lot better than my old one, and I will see you in another one. See ya!